And this is going to be one of those, are you serious kind of days. So as a general rule, I try to keep my hands out of the tank at all times. You know, yes, I have to go in there and scrape things down from time to time, or move something slightly, or retrieve something. But I've been keeping an eye on this Sebae anemone now for a few years, and it likes to wander around a little bit. It's moved its way to the back of the tank, it's gotten up into that acro in the upper left corner when it was much bigger. It's killed all kinds of things, including that giant chalice. Do you see all that dead area? The anemone has murdered all of that, and I put up with it. And on the right, you see the hammers, and I've put up with the loss of hammers. But I'm looking at this thing right now, and it's completely elevated up and moved toward the back, and it's killing the lime in the sky acropora. It's trying to hit the shadowcaster. It's just causing chaos. So I got out my stepladder, and I put my arm in the tank. I wanted to film this and show you how I was able to move this anemone because it was on a single rock. What I did not realize is that I was going to put my leg right in the way. For this particular vlog, I decided to not move the camera. You're seeing some shaking because I'm walking around near the tripod and I'm getting up on the walkboard, and so it's causing a little bit of a shake. But let's get to the point. So the anemone itself was connected to a single rock, which allows me the ability to just pick up the entire thing and move it toward the front. I didn't want to disturb the anemone too much because I didn't want it to, decide, oh, let me just get off that rock entirely. Here with my hand in the picture, you can kind of see how large the anemone has grown. I would say that it's probably about 24 inches in diameter, when it's fully expanded. Why is my leg in the way? Ugh, I've ruined the shot. Well, there was no one here to check the camera while I was doing this. It's just a day in the life of Milo's Reef. Initially, when I placed it, I just moved it forward, but it was still too tall. I had to kind of look at the anemone from different angles and kind of get a view from the front to decide what to do next. Then after a few seconds, I realized I needed to push that rock a little deeper into the sand to get it lower in the rockwork to reveal the corals behind it. You're starting to see the lime in the sky there in the background, and a large portion of it has been killed off. Now, the dead hammer skeleton, I actually stacked that up in purpose to create like a pokey barrier to keep the anemone toward the front of the tank. But clearly that is not working, and the anemone will just probably try to go right past it at some point. I think I need to get another really big rock to kind of put this thing in a horseshoe shape, enclosure, and that way it'll stay put. If you're new to my channel, you may not be familiar with the story of this anemone, but it's been with me for about 3 years, and when I first purchased it, it was a little tiny thing that was described as a funny-looking bubble tip. Here you can see how it's connected to the rock at the foundation. And it was in the anemone cube with the other bubble tip anemones, and yet it was dying. It was obviously some kind of a victim of chemical warfare. So I decided to move it into the main tank since it was so cute and small and adorable, and over the last few years it has grown larger and larger. It probably became the most famous anemone in my tank because of the skunk clownfish that were introduced with the acrylic tube or the clown slide tube video I did a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago. So the anemone is now snuggled down where I'd like it to be, and I don't care if it spreads out left and right like that. And I understand not everything can live with something else. That certain corals are gonna try to hold their own, but in the end, usually the big thing with the tentacles wins. At the moment I was filming the tank, this was 10K lighting, which means 10,000 Kelvin, because that is what the metal halide provides for the first hour and a half of the tank. And then it switches off and back on, and we're literally at that time when the lights are about to flip. So I thought, well, I'll just keep filming, and you can see how it changes. So there will be a moment here where it looks very hideous green because it is going to switch, and then the bulb is going to come, it's going to warm up, and it's going to get into 20K mode. So I just want to give you a heads up so that way you didn't think, why is he bathing his anemone in green for 20 seconds a day? So the light just turned off. And in about 10 seconds, you'll see a flicker, and then you will start to see the new color coming into play. This is completely normal, and now we are just about switched over to 20K or 20 Kelvin. And this is the color that I actually enjoy seeing the reef in the afternoon and evening at this coloration, but I definitely love the daylight part. A lot of people ask me why I haven't switched to LEDs specifically to light my reef, and it's because I love metal halides. As I watched the camera film this portion, I started to try to count the skunk clownfish because I like to make sure they're all in there. And I counted repeatedly over and over, and you can count as well. I know I saw 8 at one time. There's a total of 11 in the system. That particular time did not see all 11, but that doesn't mean they aren't in there. Those 2 small yellow fish are called yellow coarse wrasses, and I added them to the tank specifically to eat pests in the aquarium, and they're constantly on the prowl, or should I say on the hunt. Considering that this anemone has the ability to sting and devour fish, I do find it interesting how some fish will get very close to it to eat whatever they can near it, and yet they seem to not fear the tentacle. Look at the purple tank. Found some kind of algae on that skeleton, and yet wasn't bothered a bit. And you'll also notice that the clownfish are not territorial in the way where they chase away every fish, which I also like. I really like a reef-friendly environment. I don't want fish that bite me when I reach in the tank. Matter of fact, I don't even tolerate it. By that I mean that if something were biting me in my tank, I would remove it. I don't allow things to hurt me when I'm sitting there trying to give them the perfect environment. You may have noticed some of the microbubbles in the water now. That's because the return pump had just resumed flow in the tank and of course pumped some air into the tank initially as it clears out the lines. Whenever that happens, the fish also get a snack of something to eat that blew out of the pipes. Some people might ask, why have I not just removed the anemone since it keeps killing things? And that's a valid question, but the thing is it's kind of become the showpiece of my tank too. People, they like the mixed reef look, but they seem to really like the clowns and the anemone, and I do too. But it's sort of one of those, should I remove it or should I leave it there? I'm not leaning, I am literally keeping the anemone, but that doesn't mean I don't get to feel frustrated from time to time when it's not behaving itself. In my 280-gallon tank, I had a huge toadstool leather that I grew from a little tiny frag, and it took up a ton of space, and people said, well, aren't you going to remove that thing? Or you need to remove it, it's too big, or what are you going to do when it's too big for the tank? And I just enjoyed it for as long as I could until the tank finally had to be broken down, and that's when the coral was taken out. I feel like I'm going to do the same thing with this anemone. I'm just going to enjoy it, and I'm going to try to control where it is and what it stings, but I have to accept that it's a living animal, that even though they seem to just be a bag of water with no brain, this thing has enough brains to keep killing things. It seems to know how to annoy me. And so we are working out our relationship on a daily basis. If you've made it this far into the video and you're still listening, I wanted to let you know that this weekend I will be at ReefWorks Expo in Seattle, Washington. I'm speaking Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. and of course you are all invited. And I hope to meet with some of you guys face to face. If you like this video, click the like button. If you want to share it, share it. And if you're not a subscriber of this channel yet, please subscribe. And I'll see you guys really soon.